Hi everyone, and welcome back to another Tech Bytes review. Today we are reviewing the Logitech M575. Before we jump into the review, I did want to mention that if you want to see the full write-up of this review, please check out my blog site, Bytethority, in the description down below. There's a lot of additional content that I don't necessarily cover in the video, extra pictures, extra tidbits of information that I may not have time to include. Also, if you do feel like supporting the channel, please make sure to subscribe. And if you are interested in purchasing this trackball or anything that I've reviewed in the past, please also check for an Amazon affiliate link that is also in the description or on the blog site Bytethority. Jumping back into the review, the Logitech M575 really stands out because of the fact that it's the next iteration of the Logitech M570. That's so important because of the fact that the Logitech M570 doesn't really need much of an introduction. It has been a staple of the thumb-operated trackballs for decades at this point. Usually ranges about $20 to $40. You can expect anywhere from 1.5 to 2 years of lifespan out of them, but the comfort that they offered and just the bang for your buck that the M570 offered really made it stand out. It was just a fantastic general purpose trackball. So the fact that the M575 is keeping much of the same design, but taking it to the next level and upgrading it with some modern niceties like Bluetooth connectivity and other things really makes this trackball special and really has a special place in my heart because the M570 was my first trackball, and I'm sure it's probably the case for many of us that are watching today that have toyed around with that. So this is a really fun review. We should have some fun with it. I'll get into build quality, what it's like to use this compared to the M570, and then also I'll do obviously a side-by-side of the two. Couldn't go without that for this review. And then finally we'll wrap it up with a quick little summary. To kick things off with build quality like we normally do, we'll go ahead and take a look at the case itself. Very much like the M570, the plastic that Logitech uses on their mice is pretty much top quality. I mean, there's absolutely zero case creak in this. There's no wobble whatsoever. In contrast, Elecom, which I just recently did some reviews on, some of their mice did have a little bit of creakiness. This right here, Logitech products always come out feeling absolutely stellar. No case creak at all. It's just very, very solid. There's no echo. It just feels like a nice solid injection molded piece of plastic, like you would come to expect from a big company like Logitech. Taking a look at the buttons that we have here, you can see there's only 5 in total, so it's not going to have extra DPI switches or anything like that like you would see on the MX Ergo. It does have just a standard left mouse button, right mouse button, forward, backward, and then a scroll wheel that has the mouse click, which again is nice. It's very, very basic. You're looking at maybe $40 for this, so you get what you pay for in terms of additional buttons and whatnot. But from a upper housing, plastic and button layout, this is a fantastic device. If we wanted to take a look at what the upper housing actually does offer, though, in terms of unique features, you can see that it does have this little pinky cutout. Now, when we get into the comparison with the M570, this is something that had as well, although it is slightly different than what you had on the M570. But it is there. Whenever you place your hand on it, you can see it fits nicely and just rests perfectly in that track. The bottom of the device here offers pretty much what you would expect. Luckily, Logitech seems to have learned their lesson on the MX Ergo and put an oversized finger hole in here where you can just pop it out with your pinky instead of having to get a pencil to pop that trackball out. You have your power switch here. You also have your selector to choose between the 2.4 gigahertz dongle or Bluetooth connectivity. That's one of the new features for this particular model, being that it has that Bluetooth or wireless dongle capability, which is fantastic for a budget thumb trackball. Opening it up, you can see that it's powered by just a single AA battery, just like the M570, and there's also a slot to hold the 2.4 gigahertz dongle. So again, nothing really spectacular about it. All in all, it's a very simple device with a very, very standard button placement. It's nothing you haven't seen before, but it is done very well. In fact, I would go as far as to say that the quality of the plastic used and the way that it's all put together actually gives it a much nicer feel than the Logitech M570. One of the new things that you do see on the back, where the M570 was completely smooth, you can see that this does now have this waviness to the back of it. More than anything, it's just a a fancy design. I guess it could help with grip, but honestly, I don't I don't notice it that much. It's just kind of an extra pizzazz to the back of the mouse for aesthetics more than anything else. The one thing I did want to cover that I did have issues with, and have had issues with, unfortunately, with the latest couple of Logitech trackball mice, is the stock ball itself. This is not related to the bearings, but the ball is a little sticky. You can tell when you roll it, there's a bit of stiction that does occur. Not that it necessarily gets stuck, but it's just a little bit scratchy. And in all honesty, the blue ball that they have in the Logitech M570, if you were to put that in here, it's night and day difference. It's the same story that we had with the MX Ergo, where the stock ball is unfortunately just a little bit scratchy. And I don't know why that's the case. I don't know why Logitech hasn't been able to correct that. Because all in all, aside from just the stock ball being a little scratchy, this is a really fantastic device. Again, looking at $40, you get 2 different modes of connectivity. It's completely wireless, has a removable battery, and it not only does it make the perfect travel mouse, it could make the perfect mouse all the way around, even if it's just static on your desk for its entire lifespan. But unfortunately, that ball has to go pretty much as soon as you get it. It comes down to preference. It's not unusable like what Elecom had whenever they had their crappy bearings, but it does have its own issues, and it really isn't too pleasant to use right out of the box. And at least in my testing, no amount of break-in really fixed it. So you are looking at potentially a $9 ball replacement if you do pick up this mouse. But aside from that, the build quality of the Logitech M575 gets a major thumbs up. We'll discuss some weird quirks of it whenever we get into the usability side of things, but at least from a construction standpoint, it's overall a very good product. Before we jump into the usability side of this review, I did want to go ahead and cover the side-by-side comparison of the Logitech M570 to the M575 because of the fact that the usability section is going to focus primarily on the differences between the two. To summarize, if you want to skip ahead, both are fantastic devices. Both of them are very good. The usability is really just going to be me picking apart the differences between the design of the M575 compared to that of the M570. So jumping into the first thing, you could probably tell already just by looking at them from a top-down perspective, the palm rest of the M575 is much wider than what you see on the M570. And that's mostly because of the fact that the pinky tracks on the two are very different in design. You can see it's much more of just a very subtle inlay on the 575, whereas the 570 is a very defined, very large track and a much more pronounced hump in the back to really hold your hand on there in more of a claw grip style. In practicality, what that means is that for this particular device, for me with medium to large sized hands, my pinky tends to fall off the side of this because of the fact that it is flatter and because of the fact that the pinky track is not as defined as the M570. Both of them are just about the same width, just about the same size all in all. It's just that the M570 will have your hand gripping it in more of a claw form than what you'll see on the M575. So let me go ahead and take just a quick demonstration here just so you can see. When you place your hand on the M570, you can see right away that's a very large pinky track, and having the narrow palm with the much higher hump in the side here, your hand really just fits on it in a single way. And you can see I have larger hands, but they're not really hanging over the front too much, and that the buttons themselves are actually angled down, almost like forward and down exactly, which is unique in the fact that it does kind of force you into that claw grip. So again, this is standard operation for an M570. You can see it doesn't really slip off because of how pronounced this track is, and it's also has the front mouse buttons angled perfectly down. If we look at that from the side. And whenever we look at the 575, you can see that this does not have nearly as pronounced as a hump in the back. The pinky track is much more narrow, and the buttons themselves are not pointing straight down. And so what that looks like with my hand on it is you could see the pinky track being so slim and not really having a lip to catch it on, kind of slips off. And then also it's not as much of a claw grip like this anymore as it is just kind of a more neutral position for your hand. Again, both are very comfortable to use, but given the fact that the buttons themselves are angled a little bit more to the left here, you can see that my hand naturally wants to rest on this thing going straight, but it's kind of forced into leaning a bit to the side. more of that, what is that, a 45-degree angle or so, to kind of get placed on the buttons correctly so that you can actuate them properly. Whereas with the M570, you can almost grip this any way you want because the buttons are forward facing and just curve straight down, which gives much more of this claw style grip as compared to more of a neutral hand grip. So if I had to pick, in all honesty, I think that the M570 is much more comfortable than the M575. I say much more, and again, both are great devices, but if I had to pick 9 times out of 10, if not 10 times out of 10, I would still go with the M570. The M575 is fantastic, has some great features to it, has Bluetooth if you're a big fan of that. But when it comes down to the actual layout and the way that your hand fits on the devices, at least for me with larger hands that tend to fall off devices, the M570 does a lot to remedy that, which the M575 apparently kind of takes for granted and forgets the fact that it's supposed to be a trackball for hands of all sizes. Now, moving into the usability side of things, I know we just recently covered it with the side-by-side comparison, but overall, I would give this a solid 7 to 8 out of 10. I mean, it's still a fantastic trackball, does everything you want it to do, with the exception being the ball that could probably use a replacement whenever you get this. But all in all, it's a fantastic trackball. It does exactly what you want it to do. It's great for just about anything. You could use it for games like MMORPGs. You could use it for browsing. I've used it for coding. It works perfectly fine. Nothing crazy here. The standard button placement really allows it to fit all of those different use cases, which is fantastic. So all in all, usability, it's a standard trackball mouse. There's really not too much else left to cover other than the fact that it does exactly what you would expect it to do. Makes a perfect travel mouse if you would like it to be a travel mouse. And generally is overall pretty good. I think for what you pay around that $40 range, you really honestly cannot find much better in terms of usability, in terms of build quality, than what you have here in the Logitech M575. To wrap everything up with a quick summary, I would give the Logitech M575 a solid 7 to 8 out of 10. This is actually going to be a higher rating than the MX Ergo because of the fact that this fits the budget price range so perfectly. I mean, really, for that $40 range, you're looking at maybe some Elicoms, but even those are pushing up a little bit higher. There's really not too much else, especially in the thumb-operated type of space, for that $40 range that's going to be constructed quite this good. And in terms of people who are new to the trackball world, I would absolutely say that this is probably a good jumping off point. This is a good toe in the water to kind of see what trackballs are all about. I really can't say enough good things about it. I think the price to quality ratio that you get out of the Logitech M575 vastly exceeds that of any other trackball in its direct market that I've come across. And that concludes today's review, everybody. Thank you for watching. Please be sure to subscribe if you liked the content, and also let me know what you think down in the comments below. If there is a device that you'd like to see me review, please also put that in the comments. I have been reading them. I know that there's a couple recommendations out there already. I do post the reviews out to Reddit as well, and I've seen a lot of activity there with people asking about different ones. So it is something that's definitely in my purview. I'm keeping a close finger on the pulse of it, and I do enjoy that kind of community feedback. So please keep up the comments. I really appreciate all of the feedback, and I really enjoy doing this for you guys. So again, please subscribe and please keep up all of the great feedback, and see you in the next review.